Happy 2025, everyone. This is my first live back, and I am so excited. I hope you all had a wonderful holidays. I know for some people, it's a very busy time of the year, and sometimes you feel like you need a vacation after a vacation. But I'm honestly excited, refreshed. I have a lot of amazing things that I want to share with you. And if you're here, then you know that you want to improve your storytelling. Whether you are a pro storyteller who has written books and maybe you want to write a book, or you are looking for speaking engagements and you're an advanced storyteller, or you're just a beginner, this is definitely for you. Actually, what I teach is not cookie cutter stuff. You can watch YouTube to learn hero journey framework and 3-act story structures. That's not what I teach. So, um, the point of this is to help you guys and gals learn the secret to storytelling. And so I decided to make this fun. And so if you are the kind of person who is uptight and does not like anything that is fun, then I invite you to leave. But if you are someone who loves to have fun, then I invite you to stay and listen to this. The best, honestly, I will say, example of amazing storytelling is music. When you listen to a song, you will notice a story through the music. There's usually a build-up. There is a chorus. There is a rhythm. There is repetition. If you are a musician, then I invite you to incorporate that into your storytelling. And if you're not, like use this as an analogy. So I'm going to play this, and I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but let's try. Listen to it. Building up. Bum, bum, bum. You see that? Build up. And that's what a lot of you don't do. Whether it's on LinkedIn, whether you're giving a presentation, whether it is a speech, a lot of us, what we do is we don't create that tension and build up in our story. Think about watching a movie. Do they get to the tension right away, or do they build up to it? All right. So I have a little gift for you for 2025. I literally poured my heart and soul into this. I built a storytelling archetype assessment. This has been an accumulation of, I will say, 5 years of coaching people from all walks of life, whether it's someone who's entry level as a professional, an executive, a founder of an organization. I found that there are common mistakes, pitfalls, blind spots that people have when it comes to storytelling. And so I packaged it up so that when you take the quiz, it allows you to learn what your archetype is and what are the natural tendencies and pitfalls of that archetype. So, a lot of you have been asking me, how do I find this quiz? And I'm going to walk you through it. Let me see if I can share my screen here. So, what is the best view? There we go. So, this is my profile. And if you scroll down and click on this link, it's going to take you to the quiz. Now, let me go over what you're going to get out of this quiz and the criteria that I use, the scientific criteria. And I say scientific because, like I mentioned to you all, I actually have used an internal assessment in my own coaching programs, whether it is helping people through career transitions, whether it is helping founders build their personal brand and communicate better. I was using forms of assessment. And so what I did is I went across all of those assessments. I looked at all the patterns of thousands of people who answered the assessment and came up with these archetypes. So there are 4 storytelling archetypes. That's what I boiled it down to. And how I basically how you end up with a particular archetype is based on these 3 criteria. In order, especially if you're trying to showcase your thought leadership, and the whole point of you sharing your thought leadership isn't just for entertainment, right? I'm assuming, I mean, who here, tell me, if you are a business owner, put that in the chat, and let me know if you are a professional, whether you're watching this through replay or live. I'm still gonna see your comments, so I'd love it if you share this with me. Put for me in the chat if you are a professional. Which bucket do you fall into? Are you a professional? Are you a founder? Are you a service provider? Are you a coach? So curious to know. But regardless of who you are, in fact, even if you are sharing thought leadership stories, content, speaking for fun, you are likely wanting to show basically your audience some form of credibility. You want to position yourself as an expert. And that is the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when they get into storytelling, is they lean more into their charisma, they lean more into their vulnerability, but they don't balance it with credibility, meaning you are basically practicing behind the scenes. You have a business, you have a career, right? Bring that through in your story. Let people know what you're an expert in. The other part that people don't always do, that I find in their storytelling, is they're not communicating their vision. They're not communicating their why. They don't have a clear understanding of who their target audience is. And so when you take the quiz, you're going to be assessed against the criteria. You're going to be scored. And then based on that, you're going to know what your archetype is. So I'm going to quickly walk you through it. If you click on take the quiz, it's going to take you to the quiz right away. And it honestly takes less than 3 minutes to complete it. So here I'm going to show you real quick how fast it is to actually answer the quiz. So here I'm going to choose what describes me the best is sharing my vision. That is the reason I love storytelling, is because I love helping people see my vision. And if you're curious about my vision is actually to empower people to drive their career and be in control of it. Regardless of what offer I've had, whether I was a career coach, whether I was more into being a storytelling strategist, that's always been my vision. And I believe that when you are a great storyteller and when you tell your story is going to sell you without you selling yourself. So as you can see, I'm just going to go with founder. And in terms of my biggest goal when it comes to sharing my story, and this is where some people might overthink it and get hung up. I want you to imagine that I'm a genie and I'm only granting you one wish. You can't choose more than one, just one. You can have, like, what is your highest priority? I know some of you will say, well, I want to establish authority, but I also want to increase my visibility. Well, ask yourself, which one is more important? Do you want to establish authority or do you want to increase visibility? So I'm just going to go with increase my visibility, and I'm going to click on next. And then what is your single biggest challenge preventing you from reaching your goals? So if you picked, for example, that I want to increase my visibility, what's standing in your way from achieving that? Are you struggling to translate your visionary ideas? Are you connecting well emotionally, but people are not taking you seriously? They don't see you as an expert. Maybe you're unsure where to begin or how to structure your story. Or maybe you're an expert and you come across too technical. Shout out to all my techie folks in the house. If you are in the house, give me a like or hit I'm technical. I have a career in tech for I've had a career in tech for more than 15 years as a management consultant, as an agile coach, as a product manager. So I feel you on that one. I'm actually going to pick this one because I tend to have a vision. Like I can see where I want to be or where my clients want to be, but sometimes I don't break it down into steps. I forget to break it down into steps. And so I'm just going to hit that one. I'm going to choose that one. And then, how do you currently use storytelling in your business or career? So, let's see. For me, honestly, I've always been a rebel and I've always wanted to challenge the status quo. So, I'm going to pick that one. And then, what best describes your audience, this current perception of you? I'm definitely a big picture thinker. How do you decide what story to tell? I definitely love for my story to have a purpose. So I'm going to pick that one. I tend to love to connect with my audience emotionally when I tell stories. And I want to be inspiring and purposeful. And of course, I have a strong presence when it comes to following, more than 20,000 followers for sure. And I'm just going to pick one. Let's say signature speech. That's the medium where I want my story to live. Some of my clients, they don't necessarily want to write a speech or write a book. A lot of them are professionals and they simply want to showcase their expertise, or business owners who want to showcase their expertise so that they get clients. So I'm going to pick signature speech for myself for now. And then just let me know, when do you want those goals to be realized? I don't know about you, but it's the new year and I want them realized yesterday. And then when you click next, what that's going to do is you can put your information here and click on the button, and then you get your results. If I wasn't talking and explaining the questions, you'd see that it would take less than 2 minutes. What it does is it takes you to this results page and reveal your archetype. And you will notice that there's some actionable advice in terms of what you could work on. For example, I know for me as a visionary, I focus a lot on the destination. And sometimes what that does is I forget my audience and I forget my people and I forget about their needs, and my story isn't necessarily aligned to them, right? So, depending on your archetype, I will have actionable advice for you. And there is a neat breakdown here because, as you know, with a lot of assessments, you don't always 100% fit into one bucket. Sometimes you can fit into more. What is going to show up here is your primary bucket, but this gives you a more detailed background. I've had people who were 50% visionary, 50% magnetic connector. In fact, the funny thing is, one of my colleagues who is an amazing comic book writer, she wrote for DC Comics, and she actually, I think she had like the exact breakdown of like the visionary for me. And she also had, I think she also had the exact breakdown for magnetic connector. And I joked with her because I said, for both of us, because we are visionaries and magnetic connectors and we're barely strategists, what we actually need to work on is not the emotional part, but making sure that our story shows the credibility part, speaking about our track record, making sure that our story also talks about our experience, not just, the drama and the engagement part of the story. So I'm excited to see what you all get for your archetype. Do me a favor. When you take the quiz, I want you to DM me what you got, because what I'm going to do when you do that is give you an even deeper explanation of why you got that archetype. And because I have basically visibility to the back end, I will be able to explain to you this breakdown even more and give you even more tips on how you could improve your storytelling. Well, let me help you understand why these archetypes are important, because what goes on for a lot of people is oftentimes when we're learning to be great storytellers, we come across these, how do I say this, cookie cutter frameworks like hero journey and 3-act structure. But the way we think and the way we come up ideas may not be in alignment to those frameworks. And so let us say you are a magnetic connector. You know that you thrive on personal connections. You know that you get energized when you're having conversations with people. And so if you're sitting there by yourself and trying to write your story, it's not going to work. If you're trying to look at a framework and follow it like paint by numbers, it's honestly not going to work. When I work with magnetic connectors, the first thing that we do is I interview them over a call. I record it. I ask them questions. It's almost like they're my podcast guest. And after we record the conversation, then we look at the transcript and we look at all of the pivotal moments that happened in their life and we map it out. So let me actually see if I can share with you an example of how we do this. Let's see. How do I stop sharing? I will stop sharing and I will present to you a real life example of how that looks like with a client that I worked with. So share screen, bear with me. Here it is. So this is an example where I literally interviewed my client and we identified all of those pivotal moments. If I hadn't had that conversation with him and asked him questions, he wouldn't have remembered all those moments. So mapping it out and creating that timeline from childhood all the way to present is so important. Now, if you are a strategist, you definitely want to visualize all of this, because the strategist archetype usually are people who are problem solvers. They thrive on structure. So if you're that kind of person, you absolutely need structure, but you don't need like a cookie cutter structure. You just need someone who helps you organize your ideas and cluster them. This is why you see the color coding. Whereas magnetic connectors, the conversation may be enough. And then we go by feeling, by emotion, in terms of picking the right moments. Visionaries, we start with your why because you're very clear about your vision, your purpose, your why. And so we start there before we get into your story. So this is why I'm telling you all, identifying your story archetype is a game changer, such a game changer, because it acknowledges that we all think differently and it eliminates that imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, I'm using this framework and I still can't write my story. Well, yeah, because you're trying to do it in a way that's not aligned to your personality and the way you think. So it's important to know that. Very important. Okay, I am going to give you an extra treat since you are on my live. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to share with you an example of a story that I've written. Who wants to see an example of a story I've written? Come on, peeps. If you are watching this live, cheer for me. Be the lively audience to cheer for me, because it is so weird performing in front of a screen. It really is. All right, let me just go in here and look for an example for you all to share with you an origin story that I've written. And if you don't know what I mean by origin story, what I mean by that is your backstory. Like, why do you do what you do? Today I had a conversation with one of my clients who's a law enforcement officer, and he is so incredible. So incredible. He is in the process of launching an amazing product that is going to change lives. And while he's pitching this product to get funding, we talked about how important it is to humanize himself, to show investors why he has a stake into this product, why this product means a lot to him. If you are a professional, the equivalent of your origin story is actually tell me about yourself. A lot of people dread that question, but I actually make it a lot of fun. Instead of us saying, "Hi, my name is Nada, and I grew up in wherever, and I have 15 years of experience." Oh my God. In fact, I never introduce myself that way in talks. I'm famous for not doing that. I share my origin story instead, which is a lot more fun. Okay, so let me show you an example of an origin story that I've written. I'm just trying to scroll to find it. And as I'm scrolling, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing your story? What is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing your story? So, whether you're watching this live or in a replay, I'd love to hear your thoughts because I always am looking for what people struggle with in order for me to create content that is useful. So, let me know in the chat. And as you're thinking, I'm just going to drop one right now. I believe that the biggest frustration when it comes to people um, sharing their story, well, there are many, and I know this as someone who's coached over 1,000 people, regardless of their level, whether they are professionals, executives, founders, people who have achieved so much in their career, thought leaders, authors. Um, it's the fear of how people are going to perceive you, honestly. That's the biggest thing that I've seen. And I will give you all an example of something that happened to me yesterday. And maybe that person is going to hear this. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Yesterday, I posted something and I shared a photo of myself. And someone wrote me that, am I not concerned for putting on weight? Right? And that's the thing that people talk to me a lot about is I hate social media. I don't want to be subjected to trolls and I don't want to put myself out there. But especially if you are a thought leader, you need to come to terms with the possibility that you will be famous one day. And if you can't make peace with that and you're scared of the consequences of that, you're going to be depriving people from your thought leadership. You are going to be invisible. How else are people going to know about your work and your approach if you don't put yourself out there? The price of someone who's a troll, who's going to tell you something that's not true or doesn't matter, is a lot lower than the price of people not being blessed with your thought leadership and the gift that you have. I actually think it is selfish for us to have a gift and not share it with the world. Do you agree or not? I mean, let me know in the chat if you agree or not. Anyway, that to me is the biggest hurdle. And what I'll tell you is most of the time, there's a big thing with find your why and start with your why and all this stuff. I actually, when it comes to storytelling, I actually don't believe that you necessarily need to start with your why. I actually believe that what's more powerful, yes, I'm talking to you visionary, and I'm also talking to you strategist who starts with your expertise. um, and I'm talking to you, magnetic connector, who worries too much about what people think because you're a social butterfly and you're empathetic. But the other extreme of that is you worry too much about what people think of you. Um, you got to just face your fears. What makes a powerful story is actually something that you struggle with and you're scared of. And when you dig into that, what you end up doing is you're going to be helping someone who encountered that fear or that challenge. It doesn't matter how technical your thought leadership is. There is something that is related to fear that links to that. So I'm just going to be more. I'm just going to give you a clear example to ground you through this origin story that I've written, or that I've helped my client write. So, where is it? Okay. So this is an amazing client of mine that I worked with in the past. Um, he has an incredible origin story. And if you see how the origin story is structured, it is the hook just like hits you in the heart. 2002, I lose complete use of my hands. And you might think like, well, how is this relevant? How is this relevant to my story or my thought leadership or my work or my business? And that's what a lot of clients tell me at the beginning. But the thing is, when you share something like this and you show how that was part of your journey of doing what you do, people realize, oh my God, this is why the person is passionate about their work, right? Um, this is what I call a personal share. So you want to give people a little bit of an authority in terms of your history or career trajectory, who the heck you are, what you have been through. But notice how it's not long winded, right? A lot of people give a very long backstory. There are two extremes that I see. I see people who give their entire bio and resume in their story, and then I see people who don't share that at all. There needs to be a happy medium. And depending on what your archetype is, you are going to get advice in terms of how deep you are, in fact, going or may not going. You will know your blind spot through the quiz results. Um, the other thing I wanted to say about this story is that you'll notice that we're bringing in quotes and conversation. This is very funny. So 2002, I lose complete use of my hands and the pain is brutal. In my 30s, senior architect at a top consulting firm, known for being an expert in my craft, but partners didn't trust me in front of clients alone. I expected if I was an expert, I'd make it, but I was a jerk. Notice the level of vulnerability. Notice the relatability. Notice the self-awareness. And he brings in a quote that demonstrates this, because a lot of storytelling is showing and not just telling. You can build it that way if you want to pay for the solution twice. I'd say to a VP, my colleagues would get embarrassed for me. You see that? It's beautiful. You really get a feel of his personality. Well, he definitely changed, and he coaches people not to behave this way. But he shows where he started, which makes them extremely relatable. When I lost complete use of my hands, it was partly because I was overworked, but more deeply, I felt frustrated. Frustrated with projects I was assigned to, frustrated with how the work was done, frustrated with how we worked with stakeholders, frustrated with the status quo. This is musicality right there. I borrow a lot of this from songs. I have a bit of a music background. That's where it comes from. But when you do things like this, it disrupts a pattern, and it really adds a fun element to it, honestly. It makes it beautiful to listen to when you're sharing this as a speech or when someone is reading it. And so this entire story, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this entire story, the way it came together was not like, oh, we just like wrote the whole thing from start to finish. What I showed you all with how we whiteboarded the whole thing, how we started with a conversation, we recorded it, I asked him a lot of questions, and then we mapped it out. Mapping it out was important because we were able to trim the fat and decide which pieces fit into the story and which don't. We did a lot of rearranging too. And then once we did that, we made sure that we're writing that story in his voice. So you might try to reverse engineer this and use this as a template. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because you're different. And every person that I work with, we come up with a different structure actually. Oh, Eric, one tough thing on telling your story is questioning yourself if the story has value to others. Oh my God. Yes. Honestly, that's something that I fight with my clients a lot. I fight with people a lot when it comes to that because the thing is, when you're so good at something, it comes so naturally to you. It's really difficult to realize your gift because to you, you take it for granted. And this is the value of working with someone like me. And that's the value that I bring to the table with my clients is sometimes I will interview them and they will share a whole bunch of things. And then I will listen to the recording and I say, and then I put that, in the whiteboard and I share with them, this should be part of your story and this is why. And they'll tell me, oh my God, I never thought about it this way. I guess I never really, I guess I took it for granted. And honestly, when I was working with this particular client where I showed you all the example, he did not think initially that talking about his pain was going to be necessarily a big part of his story. He had it in there, but he didn't know that that was actually going to become part of his value proposition. So his value proposition is that he is a master at scaling collaboration. He is a master at scaling mentorship at organizations. He just has a gift when it comes to that. And the pivotal moment that allowed him to realize that gift is because he was a developer and he was relying on his hands to code. And when that got taken away from him, it forced him to come to terms and realize that he can delegate. He's a master at it. He can really, teach people how to mentor each other. Because when you can't be a doer, then you have to learn how to be a coach, how to be a delegator. So story, your origin story specifically, because what I teach is actually more specific than storytelling. I think that telling your story specifically is actually harder than storytelling because, as Eric, you pointed out eloquently, we probably are better at telling other people's stories than telling our story because it's like being inside a jar where you can't see the label. I use this analogy from a good friend of mine. And my definition of that is unconscious competence. So you've been doing what you do for a very long time that it's hard for you to describe it. It's hard for you to productize it. It's hard for you to systemize it. I was just working with one of my clients today, and we were working on designing his coaching program. And how we designed his coaching program actually started with his story. And when I asked him, like, what is your approach for your coaching program? He couldn't put words to it. But then I asked him a lot of questions. And the first one that he said that came from his story is that I want people to build their emotional resilience. He works with a lot of designers and he mentors designers. And I gotta say that when you're a designer, it's so hard because when you're designing something for someone, whether it's their brand, whether it's their graphics, whether it's the user experience, you're dealing with people in intense emotional state and you are trying to represent something so personal for them that they're going to flip-flop and change their mind constantly. And so as a designer, you have to have that emotional resiliency to not be affected by people's feedback and take it too much to heart, or not get pissed off if someone is basically causing you to redo the whole design, right? And so part of his coaching program is that he wants to incorporate increasing his mentees who are designers, increasing their emotional resiliency. But that didn't come out until we went through his story. And we ended up coming with his like three-step system. But it was inside him unconsciously. He does it when he coaches people, but he did not know how to describe it. And so I'm telling you all, that is the biggest benefit when it comes to creating your story. Creating your story is the foundation to a lot of things. Creating a story is the foundation of you understanding the magic of what you do, to be able to articulate it, to turn it into approach, into a system. And once you have that foundation, you can expand it into a book, you can expand it into a speech, you can expand it into a presentation. So I'm going to end with, when you complete the quiz, you are going to have the option to sign up for my $20 workshop. And I purposely have not shared basically I'm not sharing the direct link to the workshop for many reasons. You're not going to get full benefit of the workshop if you don't know your storytelling archetype. Because when I go through the workshop, I'm going to share with you an in-depth strategy with you, depending on your archetype. And also, there are questions in there that help me understand where you're having difficulty when it comes to your storytelling and what your goals are. So this is why I'm not giving people direct access to the workshop, and only to people who have actually taken the quiz. So when you complete the quiz and you get your result, you will be able to click on this button at the very bottom, where it's going to take you to the workshop. So I know for a fact that this workshop is valued more than $100, but because I want to make it accessible to more people, I set the price to $20. And I'm not going to do this all the time because it takes a lot of effort, first of all, to coordinate my schedule in order for me to run these workshops live. I'm not going to take you to a recording, okay? This is going to be a live workshop. Second, it takes a lot of effort to put together this material. So, if you want to do this, the only 2 spots that are available is on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Or if you can't make it, if it's too late for you, especially if you're watching this replay, you have an option to attend at 10 a.m. on Saturday. So you can see here, I literally just launched this today. So take advantage. There are limited spots. You know that I have a 41,000 following. So if you snooze, you lose. So I highly recommend that you take the quiz. It only takes 3 minutes and you book your spot. If you can't make it live, then you can watch the recording. Although I honestly invite you, if you can, to watch it live. Okay? It's a no-brainer. It's only $20. You're not going to lose anything. All right, everyone. I am so excited. This is an amazing year. I'm going to be posting a lot of storytelling specific content. Help me out. If you found this valuable, let me know. I'm not going to know if you just watch and not say anything. So hit the like button, comment your biggest takeaway. I would really appreciate it. Plus, it does help with the algorithm. You know, as someone who is not a full-time creator and I have a business, it does take a lot of my time to create content, whether it's a live, whether it's a carousel, whether it's a post, it takes a lot of time. And, um, you know, we as creators, like, we give you a lot of value and we don't, we're at the mercy of the LinkedIn algorithm, honestly. So the way you can show your appreciation, the way you can encourage us as creators, especially if you've been following us and you love our content, is to engage, is to comment, is to like. I also love hearing from you through DMs, because that's what that's gonna do is it's gonna push the posts to people who could also benefit, right? Okay. I hope you have an amazing 2025. I am so excited. I don't know about you all, but I have big goals that I want to accomplish. I know it might seem cliche, but sometimes it's those simple things that really help us going. Taking advantage of every celebration, taking advantage of every ritual, so important. All right, beautiful people. I hope to see you soon. And yeah, let me know what you get for your quiz result. DM me and share with me your storytelling archetype. See you later.